Hello everyone, and welcome to another Gozu-san on the Decks with your host Gozu-san. Today we're going to do a little bit of a different video for today. Let's take a little sit down and have a chat. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about Arknights version 1.3, what my thoughts are, some of the feedback, but mostly about what I would like to see in the future when it comes to version 1.4 and the future. If you manage to take a look at your messages, so if you look at your messages or you go into your survey center, you will be able to see that there are updates available that you can actually get some of your notes in. I already completed. I got my 300 ore barrel. But I didn't want to double type whatever my thoughts were in terms of the update itself. So instead, what I did was I actually did this, which is I created a PowerPoint. So this PowerPoint talks a little bit about my feedback, my thoughts about version 1.3, as well as some of the quality of life or some of the things I would like to see in future updates. Mostly it's about the stuff I like to see in future updates heading forward. And hopefully we'll be able to get something done around these parts. I think it'll be good to have a chat about this and see probably where we could go from there, right? So let's have a bit of a chin wag and talk a little bit about this. So what did I think about Arknights? First, let's talk a little bit about what I thought about Arknights version 1.3. Version 1.3 was framed as not really having too much of a main story component. It's a couple of side stories, 2 new characters with their story quests, and not a lot of factory stuff. Factory was given a bit of a cooldown, but we had Honorable Monument, and the most important thing for this event, we had Honorable Monument, we had the Sword Vault Dale, and the most important event was Contingency Contract. So this was mostly an update focused on mechanics and endgame difficulty. And I thought that Contingency Contract was delivered very well. I'm very used to... I've already sort of prepared myself for Contingency Contract, but I think Sword Vault Dale was... the trial of Swordmancy was the stage where I set myself up for success. I had an inkling of what was the risks that were possible through the early access videos that were released by some of the content creators for Arknights Endfield. And from there, if you've seen some of my streams, I was in Sword Vault Dale actually practicing some of these teams itself. I couldn't get exactly the kind of combinations that I really wanted, because I also wanted the trim medal for the Trial of Swordmancy event as well, which was a bit annoying, but yeah, I did learn a lot when it came to actually using that space to actually trial different ideas and different systems. And then Contingency Contract, it was great. You get to play different teams. The Risk 20, relatively speaking, was pretty straightforward. You could clear it with any team. I created 5 different teams to actually clear Risk 20 and above. I did Akekuri, was it Wolfguard Combustion up to Risk 47. I did Op Team Z7 with Akekuri Combustion on up to Risk 35. So then there's Estella Wolfguard Combustion Risk 47 with Tang Tang. I'm trying to complete Dabhan physical with Risk 40. I've done Risk 35 already, but I want to do Risk 40. I also want to try and clear Zhuangfang Yi electric team through Risk 40. I think that should be doable, but I haven't actually completed it yet. I would like to see that being done as part of the next few streams, right? So contingency contract was great. I had a look around the grounds in terms of YouTube to see what were the content creators doing for those clears. How did they clear? What kind of content they made? Especially the content creators which were new to CC. Had a think about what they thought about it. Some people didn't quite like the fact that you kept getting nerfed as time went on. I'm used to it because I think of CC more like a puzzle to try and see what pieces would you use in order to overcome the challenge, or sort of cheat through that particular challenge that is presented to you, and see how far you can go from there. It's a test about how well you understand your characters, but also whether or not you've built them in a way which is able to sort of alleviate that the restrictions that are put upon you. One of the things I do like about this CC is that I think I'll show you here. One of the things I do like about CC is the idea of there being risks which give you a buff, but also give you a debuff, but also give you a buff for certain criteria. I think this is something that they sort of took over from the new version of CC for OG Arknights. They did a little bit of this in like the rotating maps especially. So having this here sort of gives you that inkling that you need to really think about how you're going to actually sort of abuse the mechanic, right, to the best it can. So I like that idea. Some people might not like it, and they will just say, I want to use my best team, and I just want to punch people with it. Contingency contract is not designed in that way. I do like the game mode, but I know that some people may or may not like it. I like it personally. I like to see how people actually push through and actually score like max risk, and it's good to see that it's not just CN servers actually doing it, and then global servers doing it 6 months later. Everyone is just going at it at the same time to try and beat max risk this time round. And I think the community in EN, especially in Reddit, there was a lot of cool posts about it. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed my time in contingency contract. So yeah, those 2 weeks where contingency contract was running was excellent. I'm just a bit bummed that they didn't have a trim medal specifically for this particular event. I would have liked to see a trim medal, but maybe because they just want to see what everyone's sort of reaction to the game mode is, they want to keep it a bit on the down low to see how they would react and sort of gauge and get people's sort of feedback based on it. I haven't seen too many Doom post videos about this version. I did see a few because initially there was the first 2 weeks before contingency contract. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, there's no no content," and then contingency contract came out, and then it was just like the Doom posters were just completely silent, and everyone was just enjoying the game mode. I think the really hard. I think maybe it's because like those Doom posters, they do like to see more content that actually challenge them, or like continuous content that actually get them to sort of play more and more, or challenge themselves more and more. This is good game. I think this is a good game mode for that. But definitely, yes, we would like to see how future iterations of contingency contract actually work out in the future. That would be good. Okay, let's go back to the slides. And the last thing I think that really I liked about version 1.3 was Camille's story quest. Camille's story quest was very well made, and one thing I really liked about the story quest was the fact that they had bits of lore or bits of hints of, you know, possible subplots that might happen heading into the future of the storyline of Arknights Endfield. And because of that, there were a few lore content creators for Arknights Endfield, Ramen Blitz being one of them, Ashikai also putting up a couple of videos on it, talking a little bit about it. So having that lore concepts of Arknights Endfield sort of thrown into the mix together with, you know, the storyline of, you know, what Camille struggles and his brother as well, possibly being someone that we will meet in the future, will be, and as well as the mystery around the Sarkas in Sheshka in Talos 2, and how they have this idea of, you know, what is the this prophecy, right? What is the mystery behind it? Why? What do the old Sarkas think? What do the new Sarkas think about it? What is that clash between old and new gonna look like? So it'll be interesting to see how that would actually sort of develop as time goes on, right? Okay, and that was my general thoughts for version 1.3. There wasn't so much, too much in terms of the factory. I don't really have anything to complain about other than there was nothing to do in the factory. But then again, it was good to sort of take a break away from the factory and just focus on the gameplay, like the combat style gameplay, and a bit about the storyline of the game itself. I think it's a good break. I think next version there will be a lot of factory stuff to do. I'm going to do a complete reset of my lineup of the factory. I think that it's about time to actually get a lot of this a lot of the systems fixed in terms of how I built my factory. So we'll see how that one goes. Anyway, on to my feedback, what I put in the feedback for the survey and what I like to see in future updates. So let's go through the table of contents, and let's see. Let's start with our content update areas. So what I mean by content update areas means what mechanics do the devs need to update as time goes on with regards to Arknights Endfield. So what kind of content are they supposed to create? Because of it being a 3D explorative combat style, combat heavy with factory management, there's quite a few things that they can focus on as part of future content releases, future updates. So for instance, in terms of the story, you have the main story, you have the side story, you have the character stories from all the gacha and gacha that you're going to pull. So those are things that they will, I think every week, every update, they will have some mixture of these as part of the future updates. Next is map exploration. There's two types of maps that I noticed so far that they have been pushing. One is a linear map where it's just generally like you have one path from start to end, and you don't have too much in terms of exploration. The only exploration is just like trying to unlock new materials or new resources to bring into the factory. And usually these linear types of maps, they are used mostly for side stories or character, not really character, mostly side stories. So you think Test Area, that's mostly linear. Sword Vault Dale, that's mostly linear. Qingbo Stockade, to an extent, not as linear, I would say. There are some areas where you need to okay. I would say it's there's 3 paths. One is the main story, and 2 of them are from the side quests. So if there are multiple side quests in the same that relate to the same map, then that's fine. I think that's okay. And then you have something like, I think, what's that location called? Marker Stone. Marker Stone is a bit more open-ended, but I feel like Marker Stone could be... I would prefer larger, expansive maps like Wuling City, for example, or if you go to Valley 4, something like the Hub, where there's a large amount of space you can sort of traverse. Power Plateau, not really Power Plateau. Origin Load Spring is decently large and expansive, with a few branches of storylines available. So I like these kinds of maps where it's not as linear. You have a bit more room to maneuver and sort of explore the area, open it up, and sort of meet up with like hidden secrets or hidden quests, or those kinds of things. I like those. I like to see more of those kinds of maps. That will be part of the areas I would like to have a look at, but we'll talk about a little bit more about the expansive types of map exploration a little later. Gacha and combat. So far, in terms of gacha and combat, generally we have about like 2 characters per patch, except Zhuang Fangyi was 1, but on average per patch you have 2 new characters as part of the limited gacha. And the combat for each of those characters has been quite varied and different and very exciting. So I'm quite happy with how they are pushing out the idea for gacha. I will talk a little bit more about what I would like to see in terms of new characters or ideas about how they can apply in combat later on. But so far, I'm quite happy with the characters they have designed, so it's pretty good. Factory building, new products, recipes. Version 1.4 is going to be huge because we're going to have a new type of product, type of resource, which is gases. We'll take the gas and then we'll create new products out of this. Hopefully we'll see some really good ones. But and then more quality of life with the factory building. I'm quite a novice. I'm quite a noob at factory building sort of systems and games. So I wouldn't say that I have the best ideas of what good factory building quality of life would look like. I think people who play factory games more might have a better idea of what they would like to see. But I do have a few ideas of what they could explore as part of new quality of life or new concepts for factory building. Events, specifically limited time events. End game, we have contingency contract, which is a limited time end game, but we would also like to see in the future more end game which is replayable but also permanent. So think of like IS or what is it called? Reclamation algorithm in OG Arknights. We'd like to see more. We'd like to see what the devs, how the devs want to cook up the end game, which is permanent in Arknights Endfield. But I guess we'll have to wait a little bit until that actually happens. And then finally, other quality of life, miscellaneous, mostly related to like daily tasks and such. They did make daily task completion in the recent update, which was good. I think that has actually been a sleeper change that has been pretty good. It's not that hard to complete the daily tasks for Arknights Endfield or before this, but version 1.3, you know, I still appreciate that they do something like this, right? Yeah, okay, so these are the areas where the devs can actually do the content updates for the game itself. So let's start talking about, I want to start talking about what I want to see as part of future updates in Arknights Endfield. And if you have any ideas of what you would like to see as well, you can put that in the comments. I'm quite happy to sort of engage, have a think about it. I'm sure a bunch of other people have like good ideas thrown around. Of course, Hypergriff have not a lot of hands to try and implement all the good ideas, but they have to pick and choose. But I personally think mine is the best. Okay, so no one shall diss my ideas. So let's go. Daily tasks, first things first. So, depot auto packing. I've mentioned this in version 1.2 feedback, and I'm going to say it again. We need a system where we can actually upgrade the depot. We can allow us to just select 1 or 2 items that will be automatically packed and sent out immediately for delivery by other people, right? And then make sure that when we send it out, it's the highest possible payout by default, right? One person mentioned that to allow us to accept and deliver multiple packages in one run, especially if they start from the same package location. Let's say if you take all the wooling stuff, you can actually get a bunch of stuff from woolings, for example. Give me a second real quick. All right, we're back. Sorry about the slight delay. Let's continue to talk about the daily task, quality of life stuff that I wanted to see in the future. So, as I said, we choose 1 or 2 types of products, and that will be auto-packed for us, and then will be auto-sent out to people. So, different regions, we can choose 2 items taken from the depot, packed in, and then that will be sent out. And then we can also should have the ability to accept and deliver multiple packages in one run. It's not too hard because then we have a situation where we can actually take more, and then all we need to do is to just create some interesting zipline placements that will allow us to do multiple things at deliver to multiple areas at the same time. That is fine, and I think that that should allow us to save a lot of time rather than just having go one and then go back and then go again, then go back and then go again. Especially in wooling, where the distance to deliver stuff is quite long. Having this will allow for a lot of time save and rewards people who actually can design their zip lines in such a way which allow for like one continuous loop or connection to other delivery points. I think it will be a good change. Next up, auto marking essences as trash. Now, whenever you get, let's say, let's take a closer look at this. So if, let's say, in your valuable stash, you get stuff like this. Let's say 1, 1, 1, right? Only 1 bar per line. I think there should be a way that says if this particular essence doesn't match any weapons in your essence wish list that you need, automatically mark this as trash so that you can actually use this to etch it later down the road, rather than having needing us to actually sort of do the marking of the trash essences ourselves. I think a way to actually set this up to automatically do it for us, I think will be a good thing. So there's 2 modes that I would propose. One would be to mark them immediately if an essence gain only has 1 bar for each of the 3 lines that don't match a weapon in the essence wish list. That's the first mode. I already mentioned that. But the second mode could be mark them immediately if 2 of the same kind of 5-star essence already exists in the backpack. I'm specifically talking about the 3-line combinations. So if there is 2 of the same 3-line combinations already available, ignore and mark as trash all others that came after it, unless they have, maybe you could put in a bit of logic that says if they have better stats than whatever you currently have, then maybe you don't lock it. But that's something else that could be done. I have a little bit of a hoarding tendency with regards to this. That's why I put up these kinds of ideas, but maybe that's just me. Yeah, but it's a good way to sort of prep for future weapon stat lines, or if there are weapons with duplicate stat lines with other weapons. So that would actually be good to use heading forward. Next would be sorting priority for friends to visit. Less scrolling to get credits. Right now, one of the main issues I have, if we go to the friends list, is that it will show... it doesn't prioritize showing those which have clue exchange as well as cabins to assist at the same time on the top. There it's interspersed between those which only have like clue exchange or those with hatch which only have cabins to assist. So I think that logic for sorting friends needs to change so that people can get their credits a bit more easily without needing to scroll that much. So here's what I propose. So this is the sorting priority in the future. Put up friends who have both active clue exchange and cabins to support at the top, so there's less things to scroll. And if you've already visited that friend and accepted their clue exchange, you can just bring them to the bottom again. And then second to prioritize is friends who have active clue exchange. Friends who have active clue exchange will be the second priority. And then the last one will be other friends based on their default last login date. Everyone will have cabins to assist. You just sort by, so you might as well just sort in by last login date, so that at least if you help them out, it will be those who are there to actually accept the assist anyway. So it makes sense to sort based on the last login date after the fact. So yeah, that is what I would like to see as part of the QOL for daily tasks, especially for getting credits from detail. I think this will be a good change. If they can explore it, I think it will save quite a bit of time. All right, next. Now let's move on to exploration. I already said that Wuling City and the hub are more what we call expansive maps, and they are non-linear. That means there's a bunch of generally a large area where you can go in. Maybe there's a bunch of sub-quests within that particular region itself, wanting you to go to little areas around the map that you don't usually sort of explore. And I think it's good to have more of those. Recent map additions like Sword Vault Dale or Test Area, they are all mostly linear, and they only cover they have like 1 or 2 side missions together in that for that particular map. I like to see more of those larger maps with multiple points of discovery and multiple storylines or submissions, the like, right? And for quality of life for exploration, show stats of deployment limit of buildings in the overworld map in AIC mode or when placing or moving buildings. This has become a big problem in Wuling City because we've had so many. I've had so many of the place is quite large, but you have to put a lot of zip lines in the city in order to deliver stuff because there's such far distances, and the points to deliver to are also quite far away from each other. I think understanding what that deployment limit of buildings is, especially like the cap for all the entirety of all buildings placed in the map will be important as a reminder to say, okay, look, we will have to sort of have to think a little bit here of how you actually put up the zip lines. This can also extend to AIC area and outposts. The Wuling City AIC, I've maxed out on my placement limit as well. So 512 is the limit, I think, if I remember correctly. And it doesn't really obviously say whether or not you've actually hit that 512 limit. It's very hard to see. So I would like to see that stat actually included in the calculation of what is happening in the AIC. So hopefully we'll see more of that as part of future updates. Also having the and this is a thing that I would like to see heading forward as well. Have the turrets automatically stop drawing power from the AIC if they are fully charged via pylons. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now, some people would automatically say, hey, why don't you use batteries to power the turrets? And I say, heck no, I don't want to keep bringing batteries all around the place. I don't want to do it. So let's say if we go somewhere like Qingbo Stockade, for example. Here's an easy one. So if we go to Qingbo Stockade, and we go to the energy alluvium site to farm for essences, usually you would put like turrets all around the area, right? To help you to farm. So one of the things that really grinds my gears is the fact that when you connect your turrets to the pylon, you can see that it actually uses quite a bit of energy. And if you look at the turret itself, you can see that if you use pylons to charge it, there is a total amount of charge that it has, the amount of energy it uses from the charge to attack. And right now, because it's all idle, I'm not actually using it. It's still drawing power from the grid. So you can see up here, 8,000 energy being used, and I need to use 9.8k of energy in order to power everything. I think it's a good quality of life change if, let's say, these mortars aren't currently firing at anything, and it won't, and they're fully charged, that they shouldn't draw any power. Yeah, I think that is something that that should be done as part of the change. Now, of course, if you're offline, it doesn't really make a difference, and usually you will only see the turrets firing if you are in line of sight of actually seeing them shooting something, right? So maybe the devs have to work out a bit of logic around how that would actually work, but I think it will be a good change for a future update heading forward, and it helps to save quite a bit of energy and save a bit of effort of those who are already setting up to sort of, wanting to farm stuff on the fly. I think it's a good change. All right, let's move on to the next part. So then we move on to the factory. Now, the item control port, the ones that say if the belt feeds this particular item, let it through. And you can also limit the amount of items passed through that particular port. So up to 5,000, for example. I would like to see the item control port control the rate of flow of items as well. I think it will be good, because then it'll be able to sort of fine-tune the rate at which you use up certain items, especially if maybe you're not actually producing them now, but you have a big stock of it in your depot. So you want to slowly create stuff so that you don't accidentally drain everything in one go or over a period of time. And I think that will be a good change for that particular item. As I said, okay, maybe I'll talk about that later. Just saying that I'm not a big factory game guy. I like the factory game guy. I like the factory gameplay of this game, but I am not knowledgeable or experienced in the genre itself to give a lot of feedback. I'm just going to say this first, okay? I'm sure there are other people who have better feedback than that. Okay, and I just threw this out, but then I sort of forgotten exactly what I meant by this, but like programming logic available for splitters and mergers, maybe prioritizing one path compared to another based on particular circumstances. Maybe it's something like if you put multiple different items through the merger port, then you will say, okay, maybe I will just focus, if there's too many things coming at once, I'll just focus on giving priority to this particular item and let that through, and then stopping all the other items from passing through that port, for example. Something along those lines. I'm not exactly sure how what is the use case or how often that might be used for people who are doing the factory. But right now, I think in terms of how the factory, the death, in terms of the death of the factory, you don't actually need to control the rate of these kinds of things or control the logic of what actually gets accepted input or output. So I think a lot of factory game players, they are looking for a bit more depth in this aspect. We'll see how they decide to cook it. As I said, I'm not a big factory game. I don't have a lot of factory game experience, so I wouldn't know exactly what good factory gameplay looks like. I don't have time to play Factorio at the moment, so yeah. Okay, next up. Then comes the factory sandbox mode. So I think a lot of factory game players who are playing this game say, I want to build the largest factory I can, and I want the sandbox to actually do it. So I think that's a good idea. It will probably not be tied to their backend servers, or is the system is not going to produce anything of any value, or is not going to translate into any sort of value in the in-game space, right? So you will have an empty field in a map of its own, and the products that you create through this factory is not going to translate into any sort of stock bills that you can, or items that you can sell to some of the other cities. But you can use stock bills to expand the space of the factory sandbox. And the way that might work is that you have one plot of land per region that you've visited in Enfield, and then you use the stock bills of that region to level up the space of the particular plot that is designated based on that region. So you have one plot for Valley 4, and then another plot for Wuling, and then another plot for the next major map that's coming up. And then what can you use the stock bills to improve upon? Well, the space extension can also cover multiple floors. So you're basically creating a factory building that has multiple floors, and you can actually climb up and down to sort of see and connect between one level to the other, the different components that are needed in order to generate the products. You can also have a system where you can have pipes or conveyor belts that go across into different buildings, maybe on the same level as well. And then you can continue to build from there. So there can be a max cap of the number of floors. And then each of these plots can be expanded by using respective stock bills. So that's basically how I could see an idea of factory sandbox mode. Maybe some other people might have different ideas of how to unlock the factory sandbox mode. I'm trying to think whether or not it's a good idea to have the sandbox mode be a very large area right out of the gate, compared to you have to unlock it as time goes on. Because maybe people who like the factory aspect of the game, they just want to build the factory. Who knows? They don't actually want to do any other gameplay other than the factory. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. But I think having that idea and that ability to open up a factory sandbox, I think is a good way to engage the factory heavy niche of the game itself, to experiment with all sorts of different things. And I think you can see a bunch of people sort of trying out lots of different wacky scientific stuff, like creating XOR gates, or timing certain ways of actually feeding batteries into energy systems and such. I think it will be cool to see more of that as well with the factory sandbox mode. Okay, cool. And as I said about the factory, I'm not the best person to ask because I don't know what good factory gameplay looks like. I'm quite new to the genre. I like to build the factory. I'm putting up my opinions, but I'm sure there are pros at the factory gameplay parts of things that would have better ideas of how the quality of life changes for using the factory could be implemented into the game. So hopefully they will be listening. I'm sure Hypergriff is listening to those elements. They've been teasing that version 1.4 they will for version 1.4 they will have some major updates to quality of life for the factory, other than introducing gases. So we'll see how that actually works. I'm quite excited to see how the builds will change as time goes on. Okay, next up, game modes, seasonal events. Let's start with contingency contract. As I said, contingency contract, great implementation. Love the music, love the challenge, love the community participation in contingency contract. I think it has been good. It sort of gave this game quite a bit of fresh air to actually get people talking about the game again. But I like to see more stuff from contingency contracts and more ways to play. So one of the things that I would say is have a risk which reduces your risk score but allows you to clear the stage without a timer. In OG Arknights, there have been support risks in the old version of contingency contract. You have what's called a support risk, where if you take it, if you clear it, your risk score is just basically 0 every single time you pick that support risk. But you can actually try different ideas with different risks and then see how far you can go. I think you could do something similar here, where it at least halves your risk score of what you get. It gives you 0 timer, but it will give you 0 timer, no timer. So I think that's a good. I think I would like to see this, even though, like, you say, okay, you have the no timer, any team can clear it. That's the fun part. I want to see any team clear it. You have let me solo her runs, maybe with level 1 Chen Qianyu, or you could have all sorts of wacky compositions to see how far they can go. Or you could have a situation where people actually just go absolutely masochistic and see how long they can dodge a particular boss for as long as possible and survive for as long as possible. You'll have funky runs like that, and I want to see how people go crazy in those kinds of stages. I think it will be a lot of fun. And I think it will be a good change. I think I do like the challenge of clearing on a high score still. So I would still it's okay if by default there is a timer. This is just a support risk that they can select if they don't want a timer and want to do some crazy shit, right? So I'm sure I think that's an okay implementation. I think that is worth implementing for future CCs. And then talking about contingency contract, we can include risks which promote crowd control as meta. So let me show you real quickly what's happening in that space. So let's say if we look at the events. So we have currently in our CC, we have these risks that says an enemy under crowd control effects regenerates HP per second. And then you have a situation where it's like enemies movement speed plus 100%. Enemies also do not suffer more than 25% max HP of damage. Well, not really that, but yeah. Okay, let's exit that for a second. And if we go back to the thing, what I would say is you can have a risk which is like the opposite of that. So it'll be like momentum. The longer the enemies move about on a flat surface, like horizontally, well, it's technically 3D, so it's like YZ axis. The tougher they get, or the more they heal up. So crowd control skills like solidification, physical statuses can work great with this risk and could debuff enemies at the same time. So you lift them, it's a vertical movement, so it's not on a flat surface. So you can stop them in their tracks, solidify them so they stop in their tracks and stop, gaining buffs and such. I think could be an interesting challenge to add on in future CCs. It's like the opposite of, you CC them and they heal. It will be you freeze them and they stop healing. So if they keep moving around, they keep healing or they get tougher. If you stop them in their tracks, they weaken or they stop healing. So something like that. And then you have what's called freezer burn. So in this version of contingency contract, a lot of cryo teams weren't, like freezing and cryo teams, full cryo teams weren't as meta. You still have to weave in another element if you're looking to run a cryo team. But one thing they could do is they could introduce a risk called freezer burn. So whenever you would suffer solidification, instead suffer combustion instead. So basically, you are so cold, you actually get like burn damage on your, you get burns on your hands or on your flesh sometimes, right? And here, you can use a cryo skill to dispel it. Now, obviously, because of the mix of enemies for this particular CC, cryo infliction is the main thing. Maybe in future CCs, cryo enemies are not really a thing. We'll have to see if that actually that they would probably change up the risk from that. But that could be an idea of taking solidification and turning it into a different challenge altogether. So if you suffer combustion, what would be the best way to do this? Do you want to just focus on healing it outright? Or do you want to use like just pure cryo team? So there's two ways to dispel it. Focus on healing or focus on cryo to dispel it. So there's two ways to do that. Okay, cool. There's more in contingency contract. Talking about no dodge risk, I'm okay with no dodge being a part of the risk pool for CC. However, it should only be considered they need to make sure that enemies presented in the stage can allow for movement mechanics that allow for this risk to be allowed. That makes sense. It makes sense for this risk to be there as long as you know how, as long as there are techniques to dodge the attack. So don't include it if the enemy has wide range on their attacks or CCs the character as part of their attack. So something like I think the giant monkey, he roars and then he CCs you. So if you he's a pretty big bulky unit with probably a large hitbox on his attacks, so it's going to be hard to actually dodge it. Well, unless you have defenders. But of course, you must make sure they allow for defenders to actually go. If they have ways that the risks must have tactical ways to counter the CCs introduced in the challenge. So right now in this CC, you have, if you use anything other than cryo, you can dispel the solidification. If you use defender blocks, you can mitigate a lot of the damage if you are CC'd, for example, if you're crowd controlled, for example. If there is a situation where both of those are not available, so you cannot counter the crowd control with another skill or an elemental skill, or they block defenders, like defenders are banned this CC, I think this could be problematic. Like having no dodge is going to be very extreme. It's my thinking. As I say, I'm okay with no dodge, but I feel like it has to be used in a way which makes sense. If not, I think there are some other people who gave feedback like, say, okay, let's have like limits on the amount of dodge that you can actually perform, and if you just keep using it, you're just going to waste it and then you cannot dodge anymore. I think that can work. I'm not quite sure exactly how that will work in practice, but you know, that's some ideas that people are throwing out there. So yeah. Okay, and then another one would be include more risks which change enemy behavior. So for example, in OG Arknights, in Contingency Contract 10, the old Contingency Contract 10, which was Operation Dawnseeker, we are based on the nighttime arena stages where we need to shine a light in order to figure out where to go. Now, Dawnseeker has different risks for the attacking behavior of the two main elites in that particular main stage of the map, which was the Tola the Kagan Knight and Viviana the Candle Knight. So you can choose like risks for a Candle Knight, which allows her to use her special without needing to charge, so she just immediately blows up the character in front of her or something like that if she's blocked. And then Kagan Knight will summon more of his minions, and will also attack from the shadows if you're not careful. So having more of those kinds of risks rather than sort of saying, oh, I'm just going to add the red version of the Scorpion or the Charger for Agaloy, for example. Though that I understand that they can't really be CC'd, so it does help out if you take the CC. CC causes max HP heal risk. That actually does help in tandem. I can see where that one goes, and I've seen a bunch of contingency contract risks, which if you take both of them, they cancel each other out, so to speak. So I like to see more of that, and we've already seen examples of this be a different sort of enemy behaviors being trialed in Umbral Monument. So hopefully they can introduce those kinds of challenges as risks for future contingency contract events. I think it will be good. I still have a couple of things I'd like to talk about with contingency contract actually. So now this is just like more of the smaller things. So allow the player to change the main menu or game level music based on their requirements to get in a flow state. Some if you haven't reached it, Risk 35 has a different sort of you play different music when you hit Risk 35 on the third wave. Some people really like the change. Others don't really like the sound and the texture of the music itself as they were playing, and it sort of throws them off the rhythm. I think it's okay if people sort of play music that they want in order to reach the flow state that they want in order to do the high level clears. I think they should have that choice of whether or not. Of course, sure, they mute the music. That's the easiest way to do this. But I think contingency contract really should emphasize a lot on the music itself. So if they want to change the kind of track that they want to listen to, I think that should be an option. They should do the option. Then, next, allow players to save a list of successful runs based on different team compositions for that season to reflect on. Like, for instance, I've cleared Risk 20 with 5 different teams, right? I would like to have the game. I would like to save those runs temporarily as part of that season of contingency contract for me to reflect on and me to sort of look at and see what I actually done or included, or what did I take from that particular run. I think it'll be good and sort of showcases not just the idea that you can clear high risk, but that you can clear contingency contract with different teams, with different skills, different ideas, different strategies. I think it'll be a good way to sort of showcase your success on the event itself. And then lastly, this is just something that I wanted purely for my amusement. Include a dedicated map area for contingency contract missions. So let's say if you're going in the overworld, you're maybe in like Valley 4, the hub, and maybe there's like an outcrop here or something like that. It would specifically, if you go in there, is for contingency contract rather than just like here. And the reason why I would I would say something like this is because I want there to be an office where you browse through the missions you want to take, and the office is like overseeing this large performative stage or arena where the main CC theme for the season is played by a virtual band with like fans in the background cheering or something like that when you as you select the risks. It's not that important, but it will be really, it will sort of stick the crazy vibe of CC having like banger music every single season. I think it will be a lot of fun. I'm sure they're probably just gonna pass on this, but one can only hope. I really like to see it. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, next game mode to talk about. It's Trial of Swordmancy. I like this game mode quite a bit, but I think there are ways which we can enhance it to allow for players to experiment with different sort of teams, like team compositions, as well as different challenges, and make it a bit more consistent, especially if they're going into free mode. If they're playing free mode, then there should be a bit more consistency so that they can actually try out different things. So here's how it goes. First things first, have the team heal back to full immediately after a battle concludes or when a battle begins. I think it makes sense. Having to go back and forth to the teleporter to try and heal out of it, it makes no sense. Just heal us to full. We're gonna fight again anyway. Just let us do it. Have a way to retry the currently drawn fight with a different team. So let's say I draw a team. I draw a fight. I fight it with one team, I lose, and I think, let's change the team up. I'm going to try it with a second team. I want to fight the same team again. I want to fight the same set of enemies that were drawn last time again, rather than draw a new set. I'm hoping that they can do that minor setup of remembering who we fought last so that we can try a different team with it and see whether or not we can clear. I think it'll be a good change. Include other risk data plates, including but not limited to, maybe a specific kind of character must be included or excluded as part of the combat. Could be based on their weapon, element, or role. Or maybe bonuses or debuffs applied during combat. So maybe they start with a fixed amount of ultimate bar or 0 ultimate bar, who knows. They have less attack, less defenses. They can't bring specific units, for example, or something like that. So it'll be similar to like some of the risks that are currently in CC itself. So having that challenge on top of it, I think could be interesting to expand upon the variety of challenges that you'll see in Trial of Swordmancy. I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be good. But most important thing is free mode. Once you hit free mode, people should be allowed to manipulate the deck. What do I mean by this? So let's say, okay, let's head back there. So if we head to Sword Vault Dale. Let's head to Sword Vault Dale real quick. So when you draw the list of enemies to fight, especially on free mode, what you would usually do during free mode at that point in time is that you want to do a bit of a challenge to see whether or not your team will be able to handle the challenge. So if there is a way to sort of remove this, like stage 1's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 enemies, and just draw from the tier 4 and tier 5 list, I think it will be good. Because then you will have more consistency over the challenge that you get from the draws, and people who really want to test their teams is able to do that more consistently rather than having a bunch of weak mobs in there. I think we could even go further as saying that if you've already hit free trial mode, you can actually take a look at the entirety of the deck and you just check off or check on which enemies you want to see within that deck as part of the draw. Now, I would also put a little bit of a caveat there that says this will only be available after the current player has got the trimmed medal. So after they got the trim medal, then free mode can allow for manipulation of the deck. I think that is a sensible sort of a restriction that can be placed as part of this change. After that, I think it will be good for people to actually test their builds and test their teams on. I think it'll be good. For more on Trial of Swordmancy, another thing I would heavily recommend is if you have played a game called Hand of Fate. Hand of Fate is a roguelike game where you basically try and build a deck. It's not really a roguelike deck builder, but it's more like you build a deck that is drawn to you what kind of challenges that you will need to face as part of combat. So let's say you draw a weapon, and then you draw the particular room or a challenge or enemies that you have to face, and the particular environment that you're fighting in. And then you sort of have to try and make sure that you survive the encounter. And this can go on for over multiple fights, so you can build a sequence of fights strung together, and that can actually result in a sort of replayability that can be added into this particular game mode. You can test people, challenge the player, test their builds, test their knowledge of trying to string together different teams. I think it will be a good way to sort of improve upon this game. So yeah, do check out Hand of Fate or Hand of Fate 2. I think it will be a good way to sort of expand upon the Trial of Swordmancy and make it a bit more or a bit meatier in terms of how much replayability this mode might have in the future. I think it will be good. I think it will be very good if they implement these kinds of concepts. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other game modes that I have in my mind. Okay, so this is a new Annihilation type tower defense mode. Let me just go back to the normal Lijiang area. So, let's talk a little bit about this seasonal game mode in my head. It's similar to Annihilation in OG Arknights, but it'll be Enfield flavored. Let me explain. So, let's say you have a map, right? If you remember all of the outpost defense defense modes that we actually had to do for like in Qingbo Stockade, where we have to block enemies with turrets, try and defeat enemies with turrets. This will be similar to that, but these turrets, you will need to load some kind of ammo into these turrets via conveyor belts. So what you end up doing is, on the map itself, there are a bunch of resources scattered around the map. You know where the enemy is going to start coming from, and you know where they need to end up in. From the resources in that particular map, you will set up systems to mine those resources, convert them into some sort of new resource or ammo, which is fed into a turret, and they use that ammo to shoot the enemy or to defeat enemy waves. So you take some time to explore the fixed area between multiple waves, set up resource production, transform resources into parts or ammo, and then build turrets which take that ammo and attack enemies within range. Now, it's not as straightforward because some of these maps have stage hazards, like maybe you can't build in certain areas, or you can't build turrets here because it's too tall, or maybe the road is bumpy, so putting conveyor belts easily in that area is a bit hard, for example. So this will test you on how well you can come up with very creative ways to sort of do the placements of your turrets, your placements of your conveyor belts, your placements of your buildings to try and make new resources for the turrets to use, all that sort of jazz. So they players are tested with their knowledge of factory process, not just knowledge of factory processes, but also strategy of how to use those resources in combat. I think it will be cool. I think it will be very cool. And then in between waves, the player will earn stage currency. They can use it to enhance, upgrade certain buildings, unlock new turrets, maybe even unlock new areas of the map for more resources and building space. So for instance, this stage currency can be used to enhance buildings, so they can increase the input or output rate of products, access to new resources in different parts of the map, increase their firepower, or change the mechanics of certain turrets. So maybe instead of a turret slowing down an enemy, it will shoot acid. We have those kinds of turrets already. Or maybe it enhances like the beam turrets, for example. Those kinds of things. I think it will be cool. The player can purchase bombs to break open new areas with more resources to mine, and allows for more space to place buildings. Or maybe you could use those bombs to attack the enemy. Who cares? But if you open up more space, then you have more space to build, more space to mine, and more resources available, so you can feed ammo into those turrets and maybe overload them if you really want to, so they have increased firepower because of the amount of ammo that you feed to them. It'll be cool. I think it will be cool. So this will be a seasonal thing, and if you clear it, you'll be rewarded with the usual gacha stuff that people, please, I want some more. Oral barrel, please. Weapon sets, please. And then that can be refreshed every week. And then you get more of that. Similar to Annihilation in OG Arknights. I think that will be cool. I think it will be a great thing to introduce as part of the gameplay. I can see quite a bit of potential in this idea, but it will take a lot of time to sort of implement, I think. There will be a lot of testing, a lot of systems that need to be figured out as part of matching these requirements. Okay, cool. that is that idea for a new game mode. Okay, now for Delver of the Cryptic, the puzzle mode events for the game. One thing that I was really hoping, it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. There was a part where Edmin and Camille in Camille's story mission, where they had to go along 2 different tracks. Edmin had to fight the Bone Crushers in order to open up space for Edmin to keep moving forward. And I think it's a missed opportunity that they don't allow the player to play as both POVs of Camille as well as Edmin. I think it would be good to be able to play those 2 POVs sequentially or simultaneously. I think it would be cool. Which gives me a thought that maybe they can do something similar to that in future Delver of the Cryptic levels, right? So you have 2 characters that you control, you move about, and then you try and open up certain areas by controlling the 2 characters in tandem, right? I think it will be cool. Those kinds of puzzles are quite well received, I think. We have a bunch of like co-op kinds of puzzles anyway. I think they can include some of those. I would also like to see Hypergriff take on Portal type gameplay puzzles. We have one Portal type sort of puzzle level in the first Delver of the Cryptic set of challenges. But I'd like to see more of that, as well as more Portal-style Portal gameplay, you know, where you can actually use portals or deploy portals to meet certain objectives. I think that would be cool. I think that would be nice. I don't know if that will result in them getting sued for breach of, what is it called? Copyright. Not really copyright, but I don't know exactly what kind of laws, but you know, I'd like to see more of that. Maze type puzzles can also be included, but I think as long as the player has a way to mark points of the maze, like beacons and such along the map for them to backtrack, I think that can be okay. More of those kinds of maps will be good, and I think putting like marker points, allowing the characters to put marker points for these kinds of maze type stages, I think will be good for future Delver of the Cryptic stages. I'm hoping to see more of this. I'm quite excited to see what they're cooking. I like the environments and the level design of Delver of the Cryptic, but I like to see more of these kinds of tricky puzzles being introduced in that particular game mode. Let's see how it goes. And last thing is combat targeting mechanics. Now, the targeting system in Enfield, I think we have been shown a lot of videos of flaws in the logic of targeting enemies, especially in contingency contracts. Supa made a video about how tricky it is to keep enemies on lock, especially if you're using a controller. If you're using a controller, you're gonna have a bad time trying to target enemies. That has been the experience of Supa in his video about contingency contract, where I feel so very sorry for him. But yes, now I will say this. I have not used I've not played a lot of games which require a targeting mechanic in a live action sort of sense. The only game where I've actually used, the only other game that I've used a targeting mechanic is Bastion, and Bastion is a 2D isometric game. But the targeting works well because you're also using the mouse as a way to sort of pinpoint exactly who you want to target. So at least there's some logic in how the the targeting system of Bastion actually works. Bastion from Supergiant Games, specifically, I'm talking about that one. The ones who made Hades, okay? They made a game that was cool before Hades, haha. So, I don't really have an idea of what good targeting systems look like for what makes a game's targeting system good, right? It could be any. I'm sure people will give ideas of how good targeting systems work, and they may reference other games with their targeting systems as a way to sort of argue, okay, this is what you should implement, right? I don't know how that would look like, but a couple of things come immediately to mind when I think about what they could do at the very least. One is when locking on the target to prioritize, when locking on the target to prioritize is the closest enemy in the current center of the field of view of the player screen. So, for example, let's say this is the field of view, right? So I'm in this field of view, and let's say that Estella over there is the enemy, right? But maybe Estella is on like the left side, but Ardelia is in the middle. So if I were to target enemies, if I click on targeting, I will be pointing as Ardelia at that point in time. But now you can see that Estella has moved in front. So that leads to the targeting system having to target whatever is in the middle, but is closest to Min at that stage. So at that point in time, it would be Estella that I would be targeting, right? So that's an example of how that logic for locking on to the target actually works. What else? The player must be able to use the scroll wheel to switch between different targets, but the target switchable must be within the field of view of the player's screen. Okay, so another example of how this will work. So let's say if I look at here, okay, so all three are within my current field of view. They are in the field of view itself. It's not just in the middle, but it's throughout the field of view itself. So if let's say I target Alesh with my first logic, then if I use the scroll wheel to scroll down, I will instead then be targeting someone like either Ardelia or Estella. Then I can just continue to cycle through who I want to target by using the scroll wheel scrolling down. If I click on the scroll wheel again, I will stop targeting, right? So all I need to do is press on the scroll wheel and then start scrolling through to see who I want to change up who I want to target out of the three, for example. Now, of course, there might be a bit of logic issues when it comes to maybe there's an enemy behind the door or that you can't really see because it's blocked by a wall. I don't think that is a big issue in the grand scheme of things. If there is an enemy behind and you use the targeting system and you're not sort of engaged in the combat UI, the combat UI doesn't show up, as long as the combat UI is there, then you can start targeting. But if the combat UI does not show up, if you approach an enemy, then you shouldn't be able to lock on in any case. So I think it should be fine. All right, cool. What else? Okay, so that's all the game modes and seasonal events that I want to talk about. There's still a few more things that I like to chat about, which is the story ideas, character mechanics, and miscellaneous. Don't worry, we're almost done here. We only have 2.5 sections left. Okay, so story. Now, this is probably a hot take by me, but I'm personally okay with amnesiac main characters. Well, at least in the way Hypergriff designs them. When we talk about OG Arknights, the Doctor was also amnesiac. But there is a reason for why he is an amnesiac protagonist initially when the game was released. that it was an important story plot further down the road when the Babel event was released in OG Arknights. About 3 years after OG Arknights was released, the Babel event itself showed why is it that the Doctor had amnesia, and that he may have had personality which suits the player as time goes on. After that was solved, then yes, the Doctor started to regain some of his own behavior, his own personality back, and it became that we followed Doctor as a character rather than we are pretending to be the Doctor, right? And sort of answering from that. I think Hypergriff has a plan to talk about Admin's amnesia. The loudest people complaining about, why do we always have to see Amnesiac MC? Maybe they haven't played OG Arknights to understand that this was an important plot point, and I can understand that they want to see the story straight up when the game first released, because they want to see more of a storyline. They've always been complaining about, we want to see more story, we want to see better plot line, more concepts. But as a player who has played Arknights, I'm willing to wait to see how this plays out. Like, I'm comfortable with waiting to see how Hypergriff decides to continue to take that story. I think they were spooked a bit from the storytelling feedback that was given by during the closed beta test and all that. I was not part of the beta test, so I wouldn't know exactly how badly that feedback was that made them do some drastic changes, according to some people. But I do think that there are ways for that I think Hypergriff has ways to actually present this part of the story heading forward, and I want to see where this actually leads. And we know that Arknights storytelling has gone from strength to strength over the years. They've gained a reputation for good storyline and good lore for a reason. It's because they have shown to improve the consistency of that storytelling as updates go on. So we know Hypergriff can do this, and we can assume that there is a plot point that is to be reached, because why is admin amnesiac? Could it be because that someone has caused admin to become to have amnesia because of a certain reason in their past? We know the admin has lived for at least 100+ years. So what could be the reason why they are amnesiac? I think this will be an important plot point heading forward, right? So, and also with them being amnesiac and silent MC, I like to sort of narrate the story in my live streams in general anyway, because I like Enfield, I like the game, so I like to do that kind of narration as part of my playthroughs, right? So I'm okay with that. I'm fine with amnesiac MC, I'm fine with silent protagonist MC. But what I will agree with, though, is that I would like to see the characters make more okay, so that is the second part. Okay, that'll be the next part. Okay, so with that aside, I would like to see the characters make more comments about the lore items being interacted with a side mission is being as the side mission is being progressed. So if we, for example, if we are traveling through Swordvault Dale with Chen Qianyu, and then we reach the vault in the middle at the end of it, we see all these notes and all these learnings about culture from Terra and etc. I would like to see more quips, more comments of the characters, sort of talking about what we've read about the lore, these sort of bits of lore, to sort of give them a bit more flavor, a bit more of an personality and identity of what they feel like is a good thing or a bad thing, or maybe they have certain likes or dislikes when they hear about certain things. Side missions should help to explore the character. Of course, side missions also deal with real-world ideas and issues, like, for instance, about culture, about war, about survival, about community, etc., etc. So it would be good if the supporting characters can give interesting or different views or takes to or their own takes to sort of expand the discussion in a meaningful manner. Of course, you don't do this in like a very controversial sort of way. Maybe some characters are designed to be controversial. Who knows? It's an important way to actually forward the lore and the storytelling of the game. But this thing about the supporting characters giving interesting or differing views or takes to expand the discussion, I think that is what people are looking for at the end of the day. I do agree with other people that there should be more side stories or missions where the admin is not involved. We've seen a bunch of different stories in OG Arknights where the Doctor is not involved, right? The Doctor is the main character, Armia is the main character, Khalsid might be the main character. They are not involved in all of the stories, all the side stories over the years. So that lore is built upon stories where those characters are not involved in these side stories. Having more of these kinds of stories would be able to better flesh out the depth of the lore and see things from different characters' perspective. People want to be challenged in terms of the narrative, in terms of ideas, in terms of concepts. Would they want to see these different perspectives via the storytelling? Silent self-insert MC seems boring in comparison because it doesn't challenge the player or the reader on different views or opinions. So if the silent MC is just agreeing, it doesn't really, it makes it feel like the player is, just kept with their own thoughts or their own ideas about these things. But if the admin, if a character, not necessarily the admin, I'm talking about other characters. If the other characters can give other outside views or outside ideas related to what they are reading about, then I think it will help to improve the meaningfulness of the story, the idea, the lore, the concepts, or the learnings from, the takeaways from the story itself. We see that a little bit in Camille's traversal through his mind, trying to figure out what is the deal between him and his brother Char. We would like to see more of that. We would like to see groups of other people or other characters sort of working together to try and solve a problem or to try and go through a journey. I think it will be very meaningful. I think a lot of people are looking for more of these kinds of stories, and I do want to see more of that. I think it will be good. It will be a good way to sort of improve the storytelling of the game itself, as well as building the lore. I think it'll open up more ways to actually explore, introduce the lore, introduce the people, introduce the setting. I think it'll be good. Okay, so that's my ideas for stories without admin. But I also have an idea for a new kind of story format. Now, not really a format, but a story idea. I want to see more characters in the game. I like to see new more reconveners in the game. So we already have the 5 current reconveners in the game itself, but I'd like to see more. And I would like to make things a little bit spicy when it comes to that. So let me explain. So let's say there's a storyline where the admin somehow ends up exploring the simulated universe for a time. I don't know how they end up there. There might be a plot around how they enter or the sarcophagus or come out of the sarcophagus. Maybe that gives them access to the assimilated universe or something like that. Who knows? I don't really care about that. But this is the most important point. While they are in the assimilated universe, they will see many different memory shots of different characters, and those memories reflect characters that were in OG Arknights. Those characters could be playable characters, non-playable characters, could be dead characters, could be characters that were alive in the game. You know, all sorts of different ideas there. And at the end of that particular mission, there will be an entity within the assimilated universe that maybe is doing a little bit of mentoring to the amnesiac admin who's trying to figure out where he is, what makes sense of AU, you know, all this kind of jazz. And then they will ask the admin, which memory did you see that resonated with you the most? And that ends up with a selection that the admin will have to choose, which relates to the memories that they saw in the assimilated universe, and which answer the answer to that question that the player chooses ends up becoming a vote, and the votes will be tallied as a poll to tell Hypergriff which character the players would like to be a reconvener next. Now, this is where it gets spicy. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of tribalism after the fact that people realize, oh shit, is this what they are asking us? Is this what they're trying to see? Who's the most popular reconvener? I say we get Frostnova. Frostnova, no, why did you have to die? I want Frostnova. No, Frostnova, please come back. Let the chaos seep into the people and let all hell break loose. I appreciate that sentiment. Yes, sure. The eventual person who is going to be voted in, the other people will feel very bad. I can see that possibility, and I can see possible toxicity happening around that particular area. But I want to see chaos. I want to see chaos and complete drama. This will drum up a lot of interest outside of the usual group of people who are currently playing Endfield. I think this could be it's a double-edged sword, but I think it could pay off. This will drum up a lot of controversy, but also a lot of interest. And I think it could pay off in spades if they do it well. I would like to see this. Okay? Alright, cool. Alright, last two things on the agenda. Character mechanics and miscellaneous. So, character mechanics. What would I like to see in future characters in Endfield? Okay, so some of the simple ones. I want to see other interesting character designs and backstories. Weird and wonderful designs like, the future mecha idol. Now, those are interesting. I want to see what other kinds of characters will be thrown into the mix with the storyline. Sure, maybe idols don't really fight, but have you seen Haruka? That gal can beat up ninjas like no one's business. Yeah. Want to see more of that, okay? We definitely need to see a nature main DPS or carry character. Some people are wondering whether or not Arcane will be that character, or maybe the Sui proxy will be that character. We definitely need a main DPS, a nature main DPS character. I would also like to see the character, if it's going to be a nature character, I would like to see them utilize corrosion more effectively. You can actually extend the duration of corrosion with more corrosion stacks. So I would like to see more of that as part of the strategy of that particular nature DPS or nature character that might come up. I think it will be a good way to see how people sort of blend that concept together. I want to see more of that. And also, I would like to see more 4-star and especially 5-star characters. We want to see lower rarity characters being introduced in the game. We know how strong some 4-star characters and 5-star characters are. We want to see more of that. And we want to see crazier loadouts of teams in that system. But I think also, if we want to introduce more 4-star and 5-star characters, we also need to introduce a wider variety of weapons so that they can fit with different sort of loadouts, different sort of engagement ideas or strategies. We've already seen something similar to that where Wolfguard, instead of being the battle skill DPS, he instead becomes combustion DPS. So we would like to see more variety of weapons which complements certain different playstyles. I would also like to see different loadouts which expand upon how some of these characters could play out. I mentioned a little bit about Akekuri DPS when I was doing the contingency contract. I want to see more sets which turn her, instead of a support character, into a DPS character. I think it will be cool. I think it'll be fun to see how that actually works. It'll be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Okay. Another thing about character mechanics. One more thing about character mechanics, actually. I like Rossi. I like her concept of being a bridge between arts and physical. Specifically, her function is that she takes arts and turns it into physical for the physical payout. So, yeah, that's the main thing. She takes arts and turns it into a physical payout. What I mean by physical payout is basically the physical DPS uses the physical stacks that are being generated to dish out the damage. Like Mifu, for example. I want to see more of that. But I want to see a character being able to bridge physical and turn it into arts infliction, right? Now there's two ways to do this. You could have it, and the two ways can reflect the different rarities that they may end up in, right? Okay, so let's say we do a 5-star version. So let's say we convert physical into a fixed arts infliction. Let's say that 5-star character is electric type, right? And he converts physical status, physical susceptibility into electric infliction, for example. And he will only change physical susceptibility into electric infliction, nothing else. It can be strong because then you'll be able to, do all sorts of funky electrify. So maybe the enemy has like a stack of something other than electric infliction, and then when you turn the physical susceptibility into electric infliction, it will cause electrification, and electrification can be paid out with Zhuangfang Yi or maybe DPS Wolf God with battle skill, for example, right? I think it will be cool. But then what about the 6-star version? Now the 6-star version is a bit more flexible. If you remember Antal does additional stack of whatever arts infliction the enemy currently has. So what if you do something like Rossi's combo skill, where it triggers when you have a stack of arts infliction and a stack of physical susceptibility. How does that work? Well, you can convert that physical susceptibility into the arts infliction that was already inflicted onto the enemy. So if you have a stack of heat infliction with physical, you turn that physical into more heat infliction. If you have electric infliction and physical, you transmute that physical susceptibility into electrical infliction stacks. Or something like if there has nature infliction, then the combo skill will add nature stacks, etc., etc., etc. So that will improve the way of the 6-star can fit into all sorts of different teams, and you'll be able to sort of combo off these kinds of stacks heading forward. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people who would really like these. Like if an enemy has heat infliction, they will add heat stack can work well for a live attain team, for example. If it's cryo stack, can work for Yvonne or Last Right. Actually, that could actually be cool, because then you are forced to also take in someone who can apply physical stacks. If you freeze the enemy, you can shatter them with the guy who is applying physical stacks. That's actually cool. That could actually be a cool combo to actually look at. I would like to see that. Yeah, freeze teams are going to be meta with this setup. That'll be cool. Freeze shatter, yeah, freeze shatter. I would like to see more of that. I think if this character comes out, this kind of character comes out, which transmutes physical into arts infliction, it will sell like hotcakes. We know how strong Rossi is. This character is going to sell like hotcakes. I think it will sell like hotcakes. Okay, last thing. Miscellaneous. We're almost done. Yay. Okay, have the chats around Dijiang rotate. Yeah, we are not going to do this again and again, where if we walk out all the way to the friend panel, all we hear is the same chat about...
Got any insider news? Come on, don't make it a secret.
I heard Miesco Industries just released a...
It's always Miesco Industries. Come on, I want to listen to other people talk. Rotate the people around once in a while. Come on. I want to see more of that. That's just crazy. Come on, you can do that. Come on, Hypergriff. You don't be cowards. Rotate them. Other than that, I want to see Edge Space Salvage be better, but I don't really know what kind of ideas to put there. I really don't know. I really don't know how to make Edge Space Salvage better. It's just there. I'm sure the devs are looking to do something about it, but I really don't know what to do about it. I don't know. I really don't know. And of course, I like to see more endgame stuff. I'm hoping to see what they decide to do with, making like a more late game as well as replayable content in the future. I'm very excited to see what they actually sort of cook up, and maybe who knows where this might actually lead. Okay, so that is my list of feedback for version 1.3 and what I would like to see heading forward in the future. This has been quite a bit of a chat. I didn't realize that I took like an hour and a half to actually speak through everything. I thought this was gonna be done in like half an hour, but I'm just basically yapped my pants off. And also, I will be copying the link. Okay, so let me just do this real quick. copy the link. I can share with you this list of feedback that I have. Ew, no. Ew, no. Ew, no. Share. I don't want to share it to everyone. Come on, man. Ugh. Okay, I made a mistake somewhere. Manage access. Yeah, that's safer. Links. I'll trash this one. And I will copy this other link. So if you guys want to take a look and see what my notes were, you can take a look at this. PowerPoint slide. I have it available until the end of July. So if you'd like to look at it and have a look at my notes and some of the ideas that I have, you can take a look at this link that I've shared in the comments. All right, cool. I think that is it for me today. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out, listening to me yap my pants off for some reason. I don't know why. But I do want to see how this game is going to evolve as time goes on. I want to see new areas, new zones, and maybe some fresh environments as well. Something outside of Wuling will be cool. I'm sure people have been talking about like other places like TGCC, La Fantoma, Seshka, maybe Rhodes Island as well. I would like to see where they want to take this story. And right now, I think one of the main issues in terms of the narrative is that there is no clear end goal or steps to reach that end goal. We have the three main cities of the civilization band, and then all sorts of cities that are not aligned with the civilization band. So it's a bit hard to sort of pinpoint exactly how many areas do we have to go through in order to maybe hit the north, what is it called? The North Pole, where the aurora is at, right? So it would be good if Hyperglyph can set that expectation, as well as set the expectation of how long we will need in order to get there. Genshin has done that very well because of how they structure their nations, their update schedules, how many areas you have to go in order to sort of meet up to a particular area, for example. So they've done that well. I want to see Hyperglyph actually set that expectation as well. I think it will be good for the story heading forward, and then it will help to get people to pace their completion of the story as time goes on. I think it'll be good. Okay, thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, like, comment, favorite, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to support me further, I have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below. Take a look. I appreciate all your support. If you have any recommendations for ways to improve the stream, do let me know in the comments below. And if you have any recommendations for games that you'd like me to try out, do let me know in the comments as well. Happy to hear all this feedback and improve my streams from there. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys again for the next video and the next stream. And the next stream is going to be the version 1.4 dev notes for Arknights Endfield. That will be a lot of fun. I want to see how that goes. I won't be joining the OG Arknights streams. I think I'll be a bit busy during that time. I'm just hoping that they release the Steam version of Arknights, like the Steam client or the PC client version of Arknights. That would be cool to see. I'll be able to stream more OG Arknights on PC heading forward. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Alright, cool. I'll see you guys again for the next video and the next stream. Peace out, everyone. Thanks again.